persons, I repeat. This is a high standard we have set for ourselves, but it is the right standard, which we need to continue to strive to live by. We are a people of Ubuntu. We are a people who understand that our humanity is bound up in the humanity of others. We are because others are. We cannot deny the human dignity of others, but expect our own human dignity to be upheld. So the main message I want to express to you today is to ask for your help as active citizens, people of influence and leaders in your communities. I ask for the support and help, as well as the voice of the church, in communicating a message of hope and love among our people, of tolerance and understanding, of goodwill and ubuntu. I am actually not asking you to do anything you are not already doing. The vast majority of South Africans are not xenophobic, and the vast majority of immigrants are law-abiding, religious people who seek only what is best for their children and families, for their fellow brethren, and for their countries both of origin and abode. The vast majority of our people do not hold ill will towards immigrants, nor do they intimidate them or loot or burn their property. The vast majority of South Africans are not xenophobic or Afrophobic and do not subscribe to a narrow national chauvinism that seeks to say that while South Africa is an African country, but South Africa can at the same time isolate itself from Africa, and it is a country for South Africans alone. And neither do immigrants hold malicious intentions towards South Africans, whom they regard in high esteem because you have graciously opened the doors of your country to them and their families. You all, together, worship an awesome God, and they know that they are because you are. But even a small minority can ruin our common good cause. So I am asking you to remain even more vigilant, to partner government in raising awareness of how to manage international migration constructively. It is the policy of the South African government to prioritize South Africans for employment and economic opportunities, precisely because we know the consequences of not doing so. In this, we are not different than any other country which prioritizes its own citizens, even whilst acknowledging that there is a place for immigrants to contribute as well. But immigrants must complement our citizens, not be seen as a replacement for them by unscrupulous employers. Our visas and permits are organized around this philosophy. Where unscrupulous businesses hire foreigners exclusively, we are acting and taking harsh action against managers who engage in illegal and immoral hiring practices. Vigilante activities result in mobs, punishing the victims of unscrupulous employment practices, whilst absolving the unscrupulous criminal and immoral employers themselves. Most immigrants in this country have proper documents. Those who do not risk being arrested, detained, and deported to their home countries. Most immigrants are not involved in crime. I think here I must emphasize that immigrants add enormous value to our society. Immigrants are school teachers, doctors, nurses, lecturers, engineers, and play many other important roles. They pay taxes, operate businesses, and employ South Africans. Successful countries have always taken advantage of the contributions of willing citizens from other countries. Where immigrants do things they are not supposed to do, report those violations to Home Affairs, the police, and any other relevant authority. Do not take the law into your own hands. Citizens are justified in condemning crime, in raising awareness to the authorities and civil society where issues of crime are not addressed. My only injunction is let us take action against crime, full stop, not immigrant crime. Crime is not better when committed by a South African, but only worse when an immigrant commits it. Just as we do not talk about black crime, white crime, Zulu crime, or Tswana crime, let us not talk about immigrant crime. Just as a car hijacker who happens to be Zulu does not mean all Zulus do crime, so a drug dealer who happens to be Nigerian does not mean all Nigerians do crime. Crime is crime, regardless of who commits it. The only difference when an immigrant is guilty of a crime is that when they are released from prison, they are repatriated to their home country and designated as undesirable persons and placed on a stop list at our port of entry to be refused entry to the Republic of South Africa in the future. So call the police and report a drug den or a brothel or whichever other crime. When the police do not act, call your councillor and complain that the police are not closing a drug den or a brothel. When your councillor does not act, call their political party's office or the office of the MEC for community safety. If the police are corrupt, call the Independent Police Investigation Directorate and report them. This is a democracy. This is a people's government. It is not perfect, but it exists to do the people's work, and it exists for all of us. It is the best alternative to anarchy. It is tempting to go and beat the person you suspect of doing crime when the police do not arrest them. But what happens when it is you who is falsely accused? It is tempting to go and burn down the suspected drug den who the police have not raided. But what happens when it is your lawful business which is burned down because a jealous competitor incites a group of people against you? Democracy can be slow, it can be frustrating, but a nation of laws is far superior to its alternative. At the same time, I urge all immigrants in South Africa to assist us in fighting crime, corruption in government, and unscrupulous business practices. Do not pay for fake or fraudulent documents, and do not turn a blind eye to a crime committed by an immigrant merely because they are your compatriot. I am happy to report that many immigrants report crime and corruption in government, and that is why the Department of Home Affairs has been so successful in recent years in fighting corruption within its ranks. Make the effort to know the South African Constitution, the South African laws and way of life. Integrate into the communities and do not set yourselves apart. Share your enterprising spirit and entrepreneurial know-how with fellow South Africans and make them to know you, who you are, where do you come from, and what challenges exist in your country. After all, we are all African and we share a common humanity. We share common origins, a common history of struggle for national independence from colonialism, and we have a common destiny as a people. Africa is the future, and the future is African. In conclusion, I want to say to you, I feel the frustration of many poor communities. We have not made enough progress in addressing poverty, unemployment, and inequality. But I want you to know that our region of Southern Africa and our continent of Africa is not a burden, but is the path to our salvation from poverty, inequality, and unemployment. Our fellow Africans are important trading partners and markets for our goods and services, fellow midwives to the gigantic and prosperous future we all seek. More importantly, they are our brothers and sisters. The only thing separating us being the lines in the sand drawn by Europeans in Berlin 2 centuries ago. We dare not drift further apart, but must draw closer together. We are in the final stages of developing a white paper for international migration, which will better guide government on managing this important issue. It will guide proposals on how to ensure we remain open to a manageable number of immigrants whilst not disadvantaging South Africans. In challenging times, we rely on faith in God and the timeless teachings of Scripture for wisdom. We recall the first book of the New Testament, Matthew, which in chapter 7, verse 12, enjoins us to, in everything, do to others what you would have them do to you. For this sums up the law and the prophets. We recall the Old Testament book of Leviticus, chapter 19, verse 34, where the Lord told Moses, when a stranger lives with you in your land, do not mistreat him. The stranger living with you must be treated as one of your native born. Love him as yourself, for you were aliens in Egypt. And recall the words of Jesus himself, who taught in Mark chapter 12, verse 31, that love your neighbor as yourself. This, he said, was as important a commandment as to love the one true God. Imagine what would have happened had Abraham chased God away the day he visited him as a commoner. Had he said to him, stranger, get away from my land, from my people and my country. Unbeknown to him that this was God himself, the creator of the people, the owner of the land and the country itself, who had come to see Abraham because he had heard his cry and wanted to bless him with a son, Isaac. The history of this world would have turned out completely different. We rejoice too in that Abraham taught us never to chase the stranger in your midst away, because you do not know what blessings or gifts he brings. Let us therefore be true to the best examples of Christianity, of humanity, and Pan-Africanism. God bless you all, I beg.